Bob Olson,
Here.
Tom Kitson,
Present.
Jack Scrogstead,
Here.
Mike Copine,
Here.
Mike Zeman,
Here.
Jim Sheeline,
Here.
and Tom Wilson.
No time. No time. We'll go around to the public attendees. John, you got anything you want to share?
Not till later on, I guess. I don't know. It's that MTD.
You got to have your mic, please.
Geez, he still can't remember to do that.
Yeah, I can't remember my name. It's easy to forget, yeah. Do you want me to talk to it now, Bob, or?
If you, whatever you want to do. You want to do later?
I would like to be on the MTD board, and you're going to make a decision today as to who to put on there on the agenda to be nominated. I have filled out the appropriate paperwork with Wendy to get on there. Been involved with the lots or the MTD basically since inception. I was on the original committee to form lots, and I think I bring a lot to the table. There is a question as to whether or not a official, other than, an appointed official. I am an appointed official in Franklin Grove. I'm now president of the zoning board. But there was a question as to whether or not I could serve on that. And Charlie's not here. I have the opinion of a Mike Rock and John Fennerfrock from Ogle County, who are part of this MTD, that if I'm not a county official, I can serve on the board. Now, gentlemen, I'm not going to lie to you. I have not got that in writing, but I would appreciate consideration to be on the MTD board. If nothing else, I know you've tabled it once. If you can table it again until I can find out more and get a copy of the statute stating that I can't be on the MTD board. That's all I'm really asking, I guess, at this point, is that you give me a little wiggle room to find out if I can or can't be on it. It's not going to go away, and they don't even form it officially until I believe in July. I know they want to get a working committee together before that, but the MTD is not officially formed till into July sometime. Thanks.
All right. Nancy? Anything you want to share?
No. Thank you.
Alice, you're up later. You got anything?
Want me to do this later?
Yeah, or you want to do it now, or? Let's do it. Is it on the agenda later or not? I don't know if I got it on the agenda.
It's not on the agenda because it was still in a temporary mode earlier this week, so it's not there. But we
Okay.
can add it to the full board agenda. This committee can't take action, obviously, but you can certainly hear from Alice as to what she's requesting.
I could add it to my report, have her bring it up, because I was going to comment a little bit on it, so.
All right, we'll do that then. We'll do it when we come around there. All right. Dee, you got anything for us? Nope. Paul? Clay?
Yes, brought this up in finance, a couple things that I'm working on. Got a couple.
Yeah, I got one.
Currently, we're in the process with Stacy Stewart, Lee County Probation.
Got to have a mic.
Becky's taken the turn of being the microphone police at this meeting.
Yes.
We're in the process of working with Lee County Probation to transfer the GPS monitoring from the probation department, which is traditionally a post-conviction type of service, and this is a more pre-trial services. I was approached by Stacy and Judge Ackert about taking on that responsibility. So we're working through the process of how that's going to take place. I have some ideas. I kind of spelled it out in this informational packet, and still working through the logistics, but I just wanted to keep you guys apprised of what's going on. Second potential issue, we have an employee that was injured in an altercation in the jail. It's been about 2 years ago. We were hoping that he would be able to return to full and unrestricted duty. He went through, had surgery once, had surgery a second time. His doctor is basically saying now he's going to be on permanent work restrictions. One of those restrictions is he can't be on his feet, and you can't work longer than 8 hours. Since this was a work-related injury, I'm still exploring the option. I'm familiar with Article 3 pension, and if you can go off on a disability, you can get a second job. With IMRF, I'm not familiar with it. I placed a call to IMRF. They wouldn't talk to me because I'm not the authorized representative. So I typed up something for Paul. Paul's going to help me out and reach out to them to see if that's a possibility, if you can go off on disability as a correctional deputy, and then we could hire him in a civilian capacity in the control room of the jail. Other than that, we're looking to possibly make a control room deputy. It would be during the day, Monday through Friday, 8 to 4:30 or 42 hours a week. Basically, when an inmate comes in the morning and probation has to do their assessment, we have to pull them from the back and move them up front to the Polycom system where they get interviewed by probation. Could assist being an extra body as far as transferring inmates to court and returning therefrom, possibly extraditions as well to local counties being Ogle and Whiteside. So we're looking at the feasibility of that. So I'm just kind of planting the seed that we're exploring the options.
Sure. Any questions, comments? Thanks, Clay. Nancy? You got something you should share with us. You shared with me earlier. Do you want to tell the group your new position?
Sure. I'm taking a position with Senator Windstoller, the 37th District, as his Deputy Chief of Staff. So I'll be located here in town and will help the senator to have a presence in Lee, Ogle, Whiteside, and DeKalb County, which is away from his original territory. So that was, it's been ongoing for a while, and I've started January 1st, but it actually became effective yesterday when the new Congress took oath of office, because he never had these 4 counties in his district. So that's why the change of it. So congratulations. Anybody needs anything from the senator, let me know.
So what that means for Lee County is that Nancy is much more available, travels less to DC, and so we are really keeping her busy, right, Nancy?
Yes.
And we'll continue that. All righty. Thank you. Did you ever get a chance to look over the minutes from December 15th? Any corrections, changes? If none, we'll let them stand as read. We'll go to reports by committee chairs. Mr. Sheeline.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Finance Committee just met here this morning at 9 o'clock, and just some highlights to go through. Of course, we have the first month into the fiscal year, and looking at the revenues that have come through on the monthlies. Take a look at that. We continue to keep our fingers crossed that this trend continues, but all of those major income revenue items, sales tax, state income tax, and whatnot, they're all up. They're all up from and significantly up. Again, Paul and I, we Paul's on top of it more than I am as far when is the bottom dropping out with this economy. But right now it continues to be strong, and it continues to be strong for revenues for the county, which is a positive thing for us. Then we had, as far as things that need to be put on the agenda, we had review of the Lee County Discover Dixon Joint Tourism Grant. That's a $40,000 matching that we did approve to have that come before and put on the agenda for next week's meeting. We had a brief discussion on the Allied Facility Partner approval, and of course that's the company that Tom Wilson has brought forward that we had the meeting on Monday in regards to having a contract of them being coordinating the HVAC system rebuild across the street. We're still waiting on some technical approvals from Charlie. And so we just had a brief discussion on that. We also, under new business, we had the reimbursement of cost revision from lots, which basically just removes the cleaning portion and I think also maintenance of our obligation, what we're providing to lots. Of course, we're losing that revenue. It's roughly about $12,000 a year. But as Wendy explained, there's an opportunity for us to recapture. Health Department is discontinuing their cleaning service, and we're going to pick that up, and that'll be coming down the road. One thing, and Paul, do you have more copies of that fund balance? Paul gave a presentation in regards to fund balance policy. This is something that is pretty standard. And that's pretty standard in having, that we do not have at the moment. And that is basically, in the recommendation from Paul was that that we would set as a minimum of fund balance in both capital and the general fund, at least a 2-month fund balance, and then a 6-month, with the upper end being 6 months of fund balance from the general fund. And that was passed by the committee and comes before the executive committee, go to full board. Something that's very standard within private industry and also very common in government.
I don't know if I understand the 2 months. What do you mean by 2 months?
So the 2 months would be that we would maintain at least a 2-month expenditure on an annualized basis. And that would be based off, and that was part of the information that Paul gave. And Paul, if I'm saying anything out of turn, jump in.
No.
That it'd be, so this chart here, the blue line is the general fund, and it drops down, as you can see, below a 2-month, which is the red line. And that's very common because of the way, over half or just slightly over half of our revenues come from property taxes. So there's a period of time throughout the year, the fiscal year, that we, from the general fund specifically, that the general fund would drop below that 2-month requirement. So that is why we combine the general fund with capital, because capital really, in essence, is our reserve. It's our so there's no reason why you wouldn't include that. So the green line is showing that of those two funds together, of how this policy would work. So you can see that we're very much, this is a very, I want to say, relatively conservative policy, and it's also something that we can adjust over time as things. So, and if you have any questions,
Yeah.
Paul would be.
Yeah, I mean, I can answer any questions that you might have, but as Jim pointed out, what we're trying to do is maybe it helps you guys in future views of your financial stability. So if you keep a 2-month, call it a reserve in your general, at least if a catastrophe were to hit, you'd be covered in somewhat, and then the capital would come in and maybe give you extra cushion.
As long as you combine both of them, right? Usually a 6-month is the cushion you want, I would think, in any business, working capital you'd want.
Absolutely, and so the minimum, and this is very common in a government ordinance or policy, the minimum is basically the 2-month. The upper end of it is a 6-month, and any excess of that would then go into capital, which is kind of what we do today.
Yeah, and this is a cash basis anyhow, so.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
All right. Sorry.
Okay, no, I have further questions, so, especially from the chairman.
Go ahead.
Anybody else have any questions on that while we're at it? Okay. Then we have Sheriff's Department. I had a capital request for Polycom Studio Zoom feature. Sheriff, if you want to mention what this is about, I could do it for you if you want me to do it, but go ahead since you're here.
I can touch upon it briefly. I believe everybody probably has the pictures in their packet along with the bid Currently, our Zoom proceedings take place on a laptop, and one of the pictures is attached with it. The laptop is loose. It's got a camera. We've been fortunate, nobody's destroyed the laptop yet. However, it could be picked up and used as a weapon against a correctional deputy. So we're basically trying to shore things up. Zoom is obviously going to be the wave of the future, coming from the pandemic. And then even there's some provisions in the Pretrial Fairness Act that we might possibly have to do some weekend court. That's still in abeyance with the Supreme Court to determine ultimately what's going to be law and what's unconstitutional. But so we're looking ahead and just like to get this system in place where we could do Zoom proceedings with this Polycom suite. The current Polycom suites that we have are just two-way, and Zoom will not, I'm being told Zoom would not add on to that.
Something about where the Zoom is being taken place is there is a room dedicated for DUI processing. So there's no secured room in that bench, garbage can. You got the BAC instrument in there. So this would go into the actual secured location where they do. So it's a better secure place.
Absolutely correct. Yes, thank you.
So the recommendation coming out of finance is that this come out of capital and placed on the agenda. Then we had the onboard voting test, which went well, which was, well, kind of well. We have one member that's really struggling. We don't know what the problem is, but we'll get her figured out.
It's because I'm blonde.
Actually, it's gone well all week. I think it's because I lost my temper with onboard and now suddenly everything's working. I don't get it.
Anyway, that concludes my report, Mr. Chairman.
Any questions? Mr. Sheeline? Thanks, Jim. Mr. Scrugstead?
All right. The County Service Committee met Monday. All members were present. Dave Anderson walked us through on how the Highway Department gets its funding. I was unaware of how we got the funding, which included the state federal funding. It's still going to take some time on how this department works for me. He also went through the letting schedule and didn't want to take up an hour going through the process of what this all entails. However, he did invite us all to attend these processes, which are the Friday before the committee meetings. So we're going to have to figure out on how we're going to attend those. There are some reports from the assessor and GIS departments and on board. They're pretty busy with board reviews, and GIS is still continuing to work with the NG 911 and parcel maintenance, and then coordinating with the Dixon City with their GIS. County clerk is getting ready for consolidated election coming up this spring. Lots has a report on board if you want to take a look at that. ROE had no report as they were just coming back from Christmas break. Am I allowed to say Christmas break?
Yep.
Okay. All right. So that.
Thanks to Trump, we can say Merry Christmas again. So.
Okay. Yeah. He did say that there was a legislation that was passed last year that the state of Illinois adopted a national sex education standard. The state allowed school districts to decide if they wanted to adopt those standards. About 70% of the districts throughout Illinois did not adopt those standards. However, the state just forced through a HB 518, and must have deleted the last number. I think it's 5188 House bill that would have taken away the district's ability to decide for themselves. There was an uproar through different legislative organizations. They got thousands of people to contact their representatives, and they got it stopped before it got to the floor. So that's why it's very important for citizens to reach out to the representatives and, take a stand. So I asked Chris to keep the committee updated on that topic in case they try to run that through again. Dee gave us a brief description of the latest information involving the new bill that was passed by the state, Legislative House Bill 4412, which in a nutshell is making all Illinois counties to align themselves with their goals of renewable energy, which will infringe on the county's authority to regulate land use for renewable energy. So basically, ordinances that we just passed will need to be modified to match what the state says that we will allow. Now, my understanding is They did come up with some information, and I believe you have some things to share with us then, to update that. Going further.
Yes, so I have handed out to you guys this morning a packet entitled The Impacts of Lee County. It says wind ordinance at the top, but it's both the wind and solar ordinance. This document outlines some of the changes that they have, I guess, approved, that we will have to come into compliance with. The biggest changes I've noticed would be to setbacks for both wind and solar. We would have to reduce the setbacks that we currently have in place. Shadow flicker, we're going to have to reduce some of our protections to non-participating property owners. Decommissioning will be determined by the AMA agreement, so it's taking away what we have outlined for decommissioning. There's some other minor changes to some of the other things we're doing, but I would say that those are the major changes we're looking at. We do have 120 days to get this into an ordinance for our county. And we'll be working with the state's attorney's office and my board to get some drafts going and approved.
Alice, my understanding is that this is on the governor's desk for signature, so it's not technically public act yet?
Oh, my apologies then. I was misunderstood this morning then.
I think I'm probably the one that told her. I thought he signed it yesterday, I thought, but maybe he didn't.
Not that and it would be unusual for him to sign something unless he wanted to make a political statement, so maybe.
Yeah.
But yeah, I did not understand that the governor had signed this just yet. So if he hasn't, you'll have 128 days from the date he actually signs it. It becomes a public act. And I haven't had a chance to read through everything you just handed us, but is there an effective date for all of this? Is it the 120 days you've got to create the ordinance locally? Okay.
It's got to be in place, I think, in 120 days, correct?
After it becomes a public act, which is when the governor signs it. And I apologize if I've misled anybody, but I did not hear the governor signed it.
I'm not sure either. I just asked Alice to do this yesterday. This is awesome, Alice. Thank you.
I do apologize. There are some errors. I did notice that I forgot to complete a sentence. So I will be working on adding some further changes to this document and hopefully get it out to the entire county board later this week. So by tomorrow.
You know, definitely it's frustrating for all the time and effort and money we put into coming up with our ordinances and Chastain and all this, and now the state comes and does this to us. It makes me wonder on the battery storage, do we leave a moratorium in until we see what the state does? You know, rather than, you know, reinvent the wheel, then have them come and trump us.
It's certainly something to think about. I would also say that it's typical for the governor to take about 60 days before he signs something, unless it is a political statement he wants to make, as was the assault rifle legislation that moved through. He wanted to get that out there ASAP. But what's typical is about 60 days. So I'm saying that because I think we probably do have a little bit of window of time to be finalizing, Alice, as you said, and refining where we go with this. So.
Just point of clarification, this will not affect anybody who's already, we've approved and that has not started anything yet. It'll only be after this 120.
I am not sure of that because I haven't read the language. Alice, do you have an opinion on that or a thought?
Well, it depends. There are some deadlines regarding AMA. If they haven't previously entered into an AMA prior to 2015, they'll have to apply for an AMA. So there are some things that will, yes. Projects that were approved before, I'm not sure of the date, but that was approved previously. If they go to modify, then.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
What do we do with wind farms that are currently under the old ordinance, like decommission and stuff like that, what happens then? That might be a question for Stephanie on something like this. I don't know.
We definitely have to take a closer look at the language to see how it's going to affect any of the outstanding, like you say, that have language in there that's not going to be permitted going forward. We just have to review it.
All right. Yep, that's all I have. Questions for Jack? Thanks, Jack. Mr. Zeman?
Claims, I have 2 meetings to report on. December 22nd, we approved 71 claims. And January 4th, we approved 57 claims. And we also did, I think it was 2 paid in vacation claims, which was a new process for me, but that's what so there's 2 sets of eyes on.
Yep.
On the bill, so.
I love that system. Before, it was just me and Becky sorting it
Yeah.
out, so I'm glad.
Of course, we trust you.
Trust myself. All
That's all I have.
right, any questions? Mr. Friel?
All right, I'm new to this, but we'll wing it here a little bit. The 2 main items I would say are the natural gas contract renewal. After discussion, we decided to go with a 1 year because flexibility of the market and stuff we didn't want to lock in for an extended period of time. Hopefully it's going to come down. We also heard from Allied Facility Partner, was very informative. Everybody on the committee was very positive about him and what they can give to us. Project manager based specifically for us. He actually took a tour over at the Cowarts building just to look things over. A lot of ways that they can bring their expertise or engineering, all the things they can bring to the table that unfortunately we don't have anybody on staff that's capable of doing it. So very positive. And the state's attorney was going to do a little checking on, just the ins and outs of it, but very well received and everybody was very positive about it. So that's mainly what we had going on.
Any questions?
I'll just add a quick comment, Bob, if I might. And so just to reiterate, the project that we're looking at partnering with Allied on is the HVAC at the Courts Building, and that has already been budgeted for this year. So we don't necessarily need full board approval for that because you've already given your approval through the budget process. Rather, Tom's goal here was to just make sure everybody was aware that we were looking at using a different process, and assuming the state's attorney concurs with that, then we'll be good to go to start the HVAC process.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Thanks, Dean. Tom, do you have anything you want to share? No. All right, Mr. Copine?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Public Safety met January 9th. Everybody was present with one attending by Zoom. We didn't have any public attendees to make any comments or anything. Last month's meeting minutes were approved without modification. We heard a report from all the departments listed there with the exceptions for the judges, coroner, and the public defender. Mr. Lally was not available to bring a report there. He was in a special training session for the new drone that has been received, so he's learning how to fly that. All the other reports that are listed on the report are there. It would just be repetitious for me to go through all of them. We had nothing under unfinished business. New business, again, we tested the voting system, which I thought went well. Of course, Nancy's not alone on some of the issues when it comes to electronics, so I just joined that issue of problems of not learning fast enough on my part. Other than that, we had no executive session, and that's basically what I have. If you've got questions on some of the stuff that we've already heard, it is in the minutes there in the agenda.
You want to share with the committee where Mr. Lally is, and is he still helping out down with the fire, or is he back?
He's still, I apologize for not bringing that up. Yesterday afternoon, I did get a call from Mr. Lally. He had been called and asked for assistance relating to some of the chemicals and stuff that were exposed to the fire and in LaSalle yesterday at Curus Chemical plant or something like that. They had an extremely large fire down there that was about a 4-box alarm system by the time they got done calling people in from equipment all over. So Kevin informed me that he would be down there yesterday, probably today. And he had got in touch with the sheriff and then, excuse me, advised the sheriff that he would be gone in case something would happen here. And then I notified Bob from the chair position, just so he didn't get blindsided like the sheriff did kind of with information the other day and a little bit of a surprise. But he's down there again today. He said that if anything major did happen, that he would pass the responsibility on to somebody down there and return to the county. So he's not that far away. So his expertise was called upon again.
Any questions or comments for Mike? Thanks, Mike.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
We'll go to old business. I have none before us. New business, transfer of property to the Village of Compton. Looks like we have a resolution in there. Any questions or comments, Wendy?
I would just add that this is the first property that the Abandoned Property Working Group tackled. And so we have mitigated the unsafe condition by demolishing the house. And then we reached that fork in the road where where do we go from here? And ultimately, it was determined that we do not want to retain title to the property because then we're going to end up having to maintain it. The fact its location warranted very little projected or estimated market value. So the solution here is allowed by statute for us to just grant the property to the Village of Compton, and they can take care of maintaining it and or proceed to sell it if that's what they should choose to do. So that's why we got to a fork in the road, and this is the direction we chose to take. We need your full board approval to transfer that property. It will be done by quitclaim deed. And what that essentially means is we're just giving up any interest we have. We are not going through a title policy cost. We're just quitclaiming the property to the village. The village has an equal responsibility to accept the property. And so they've got their attorney working on a resolution to accept the property. And assuming both of those things take place, we will issue a quitclaim deed to the village for as soon as, again, we get all the I's dotted and the T's crossed. Any questions?
For the new board members, it was an old abandoned building or house that burnt, and then we used ARPA funds, and we've got, what, $16,000 into it, probably?
A little bit more than that, but that's close. And it was very unsafe and had been for about 5 years, and the village pleaded with us to consider doing something to mitigate the unsafe conditions. And so, yeah, we did step in with some ARPA dollars.
Any questions or comments? All right. We don't need a vote on that. We're going to put it on the full agenda, correct?
Correct. It's moving on to the full, well, you can make a recommendation if you want to. This did not go before any other committee, so maybe you ought to make
Yeah,
a
maybe
recommendation.
We need a motion to recommend. Mr. Kitson recommends to put this on the.
Put it on the board, put it on the agenda.
All right, Mr. Cobbeen seconds that. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. We go down to the natural gas contracts, what Mr. Friel talked about. I think we decided to go 1 year and then see what happens. It seems like commodities are coming down. I think that was the general consensus. All right. Got a correction on the battery storage moratorium. Wendy, you want to?
So yes, so my apologies. Last month on your agenda was this moratorium. Also on your agenda was the creation of a standing committee to review the zoning ordinance. We asked last month for you to table the standing committee because we had some other ideas, which I'll talk about in a few minutes. We had some other ideas, so we asked you to table that. Well, unfortunately, in that moratorium, we referenced the new standing committee. So we need to go back and remove any reference to the new standing committee that hasn't been created and may not be created. So this is just a Scrivener's error correction that I'm asking to re-vote on and correct that document.
I entertain a motion. Mr. Kitson, we have a second. Mr. Sheeline, any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. We got a resolution in opposition to 4412. I think that's a moot point right now. We'll go down to appointments.
So I have a backstory on this one too, Bob, if you want me to take this, because I didn't get a chance to talk to you. So if you remember last year, we went through a pretty significant change of the ordinances for the animal control. And in the process of doing that, we discovered the statute requires that the county name an administrator for animal control. As you can see, and I'm going to pull it up here, give me a second. As you can see, the statutory language is actually included in the resolution. So it says the county board shall appoint an administrator. An administrator is defined as a veterinarian licensed by the state of Illinois and appointed pursuant to this act, or in the event a veterinarian cannot be found and appointed pursuant to this act, a non-veterinarian may serve as the administrator under this act. It goes on to say that if you appoint a non-veterinarian under this act, the administrator is required statutorily to defer to the veterinarian regarding any sort of medical decisions. So there's a bit of history behind this. Back when, for those of you that were around when Rick Ketchum was the chair, things kind of came to a head. We were having trouble finding a veterinarian and paying enough to keep a veterinarian on staff. And so the decision was made at that time to appoint the animal control administrator as the administrator with this express, permission and authority to work with the veterinarian anytime they needed medical decisions. Unfortunately, when we were going through this, I was not able to find any sort of resolution that followed through with that. In other words, the board never made that formal decision. So I'm trying to correct that oversight from approximately 7 or 8 years ago. So that's what I'm looking to do.
And this hasn't been to committee yet? This is the first this has shown up?
Because the executive committee typically deals with all appointments. So yeah, we stuck it on your.
So we need a motion to approve this resolution. Mr. Copain moves. Mr. Kitson seconds it. Any discussion? If none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. I'll go down to the raffle report, the last alarm. You look on there. They did an awesome job, and I think they sent a check to the Lions Club for $33,736 out of all that. It was quite a raffle, quite a Queen of Hearts. I think we need to approve that. Do we need a vote to approve?
You don't officially approve it. You place it on file is essentially the language we do. You can, yes, a motion to place it on file.
All right, do I have- Jack seconds it. Mr. Sheeline made the motion. Jack seconded it. Any discussion about that file?
We're there.
Winter Twins.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. We have the review of the per diem for the county. Everybody get a chance to look at it? Do I have a motion to approve that?
So moved.
We don't?
We don't motion until county board, but Paul's going to help me understand this. So for the per diems, let me pull it up real quick.
I thought we always approved that packet, but maybe not.
Well, you will at the full board meeting.
Okay.
So these December meetings are approved in January, and they're going to be paid out the first payroll in February.
Yep.
So even though it has a December date, there's a lag.
We used to sign that packet. We don't have to do that no more.
No, we've gone round and round about that. Becky and I have been, and we
I've been in
worked
that
with.
meeting one time.
Yes, and we were with Paul and Paula, and we've gone round and round about that. And I think we did that historically because we didn't have the document that we now place right in onboard to be transparent about that. We didn't have all of that. So at this point, we don't have executive committee approve it. Not that you couldn't, it would be certainly transparent to do so, but it typically is done at the full board now.
All right, just there's no questions or comments. Everybody get a chance to look at it. We'll keep moving on. So test voting, do you want to try that?
I do. So it's gone very successfully all week, as I said earlier, I think because I got really cranky. So let's give it a shot. Becky's going to, again, just remind everybody, the chairman of the committee or the board opens the vote. And when he verbally opens the vote, the clerk will actually go into the software and open the vote. So Becky's working on that even as we
Would like
speak.
to open the vote, Becky.
All right, and then now she's opened the vote, and again, be mindful if you get stuck anywhere of what happened when you got stuck, because I need to report that back to onboard.
We're going to be closing the voting. We'll say it 3 times.
Do you have, click on view approval? You do not, you're in a.
We
So
go
go
there,
back
so-
and come back in.
Yeah,
there.
we
So
are
What you're doing is refresh.
You guys are out today.
And then scroll down to that spot on
Yeah, I can't.
executive, and it should say view vote. No, it doesn't. So, okay, so you're one of the ones it's not coming up for.
Okay,
The other
action.
option is to go here to notifications,
Then I
and
can't
it
decide to come up,
says,
so.
oh, you know what?
I'm not on
He
this
doesn't-
committee.
He's not on this committee. He wasn't
right.
permission to do it. That's something I've got to, that's a note to myself. He's not
So when we
officially
sit-
on the committee,
yeah.
so right before, when I know we've got a replacement for somebody sitting at this table,
We got to.
I got to go in and I've got to give him permission. So it's not you, it's
Okay,
me.
cool.
Okay, but
I'm happy if you're happy.
Checklist at the beginning of the meeting. so
You know, I can't get
all
back to
meetings
this.
So you're the one of the ones stuck in this. You can't.
So
get
then
back
was he
to it.
technically
Earlier,
appointed
last-
to the committee?
last
I can
meeting I
put that
was
in the
You were able
minutes.
You got the book.
I knighted him earlier. so-
Did you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sometime
Can you
I-
say that out loud so I can put it in the minutes?
Yep, I think it is. The other thing is, we got to drive home to all board members.
All right.
If you're Zooming, you need to check with me or Becky or Wendy to make sure you're allowed to vote, so
Voting's
we
not
have, we're
there.
okay to vote.
Finance. Okay, he's not on here either, but yeah, he's got a notification.
I had finance test, but I'm not on.
I'll have to check, Tom, but it's very possible. This is very, every little thing
Unless-
has to be permission.
Unless
And
it's
if we
been
don't have the
closed.
permission set up, and obviously I didn't think Tom should have permission to vote. Tom, I'll confirm that.
Of course, we kind of concur in that.
Yeah.
Say you're not alone.
Tom, I will confirm that that
That's
is in
fine.
fact the case.
But
And
the
if that's the
last-
case, at least we know what's going on.
Yeah,
with you.
in
And I
finance-
definitely know what's going on with Dean. I need permission.
In
to do
finance,
that.
it went through all right, so.
Yes, yes.
Did you see how I?
I'm glad to see Charlie voted.
Oh, Charlie voted. That's great. No, Charlie's a no vote.
Oh, all right, all right.
No, he didn't vote, that's what it
And he
Tom's
didn't vote,
name
and
is on
because he
there.
can't vote.
I voted. It says I did a no vote.
Well, it's not closed yet.
Oh,
says I-
I'm going to
Showing
close the
So
voting
I
It
got-
is
now.
on there.
My name's on there, so.
Well, that's that's the list of everybody on
Yes.
board.
It is. I might
Oh,
not.
all right.
So I'm gonna check it, Tom. I'll verify.
So it says we got 9
Chairman
votes
then
up there.
calls for a close of the vote, just to give everybody fair warning.
Close the vote.
So he closes the vote, Becky closes, or the meeting clerk closes the vote, and then. So go back into the meeting. Can you get into it from the meetings?
Huh. Now, Wendy, I went back to the agenda.
And came back in?
Tapped on the vote and it let me,
Did it work?
well, I think I got it in before you closed it,
I
but
haven't closed it yet. so-
She hasn't clicked.
yeah, it says it took my vote. So, I don't know if that helps, but. Oh, here we go. And you voted against it?
Yeah, come on.
I would vote against this test vote too. It's killing me. It's just killing
Don't
me.
help them.
So what's our plan with this voting? I mean, we can't have board members helping board members vote. So what, are we going to regroup, retry, or what are we going to do?
Yeah, so I do know that I did challenge on board to fix several things, and so I want to give them a little bit of time to do that. But then, yes, if we're still having troubles after that, they also offered and said, well, maybe it's a training thing. Could we help train? And I said, well, yeah, but if members get stuck, like we've had people getting stuck before, you can't sit on Zoom and try to train these people how to get unstuck. There's a problem here. There's an issue with the software. You need to fix that first, then we'll talk about training. So anyway, I'd like a little bit more time, a little bit more latitude. The reason we're going through it again this week is not to drive you all nuts, but rather I want this thing to give me errors so that I can report back specifically what the errors are and give on board the ability to be able to troubleshoot. So that was my goal for doing this again. So Becky's got the votes up there. You can see how it appears, who voted. And Becky, did you find if Tom was able to, his vote got in? All right, you're in, Tom. Dean, sorry, you were out.
It's all right.
Is there other voting platforms we could use, or, I mean, this
Well,
ties into our-
not associated with this platform. So, but yeah, we're there. I won't bore you with the details behind the scenes of some of the things that we talked about with Onboard, but I am still optimistic they're going to get it together. And we're going to be able to therefore get it together.
You know, it might be better to have some at our desks that we, just like they do at the legislative or something, you know, electronically or something, the way this is going. So, all right. Any questions or comments? We're going to keep moving on.
There's not going to be an executive session because we don't have the minutes ready.
I don't have nothing for executive.
Charlie didn't get a chance to review some things, so we're waiting for him on some executive session review. But I will take an opportunity to fill you in before you get into the board agenda, if I might have a minute.
Yep.
So I alluded to a few minutes ago, the idea that we backed off of creating a standing an ad hoc committee for the zoning ordinance, because the concept we started talking about for multiple items was the idea of having working groups. The idea with the working group, it'd be, small groups, 2 to 3 members that do not violate the Open Meetings Act. So in other words, they're not going to be all 2 to 3 members of the same committee, because that would be a violation, but rather some people with some special expertise that could come together on several topics and that could present or pull together some draft concepts for the board's consideration. So the vision is these working groups, 2 to 3 people would come together, research topics, come back to the board, appropriate board committee with some solutions. And at that point, then the committees and then the full board would ultimately consider some of those options. So right now, what we're looking at doing is having 4 different working groups. First one would be that zoning ordinance working group. The other one would be abandoned properties, grants, and then tourism. The zoning ordinance working group would theoretically report to county services, because that's where the zoning department reports to. Abandoned properties would go to public safety for further approval and public transparency. The grants would technically go to finance once the working group had a proposal. And tourism working group would go to executive. There wasn't a clear direction for that, so I thought executive made sense. We have some names on those committees, on those members, working groups, not committees, but working groups right now. But Bob did want me to read these off and then throw out to you that if anybody else is interested, if this meets your approval, Bob will probably name these working groups announce them maybe at full board. So right now, under zoning, we have a lead of that working group of Jack Scrogstead, because Jack's the chair of county services. We have Reed Acree, Dean Friel, and Keen Hudson. So 4 people assigned to that working group. Abandoned properties, we've got Mike Copine taking the lead on that, Dean Friel as a member, and Mike Pearson as a member. Grants, Bob Olson would take the lead on that. Dean Friel came forward yesterday and shared with me that he's got some grant experience. So Dean Friel and Laram would be on that working group. Tourism, right now, the lead on that would be Tom Kitson, Angie Schippert, Ron Gascoigne, because Ron is the liaison to the Lee County Tourism, and then Katie White. So those are our working groups that we've got right now. Again, Bob wanted me to put this out to you and make sure that met with the concept meets with your approval, and the current selections for the working groups meet with your approval or suggestions.
Questions or comments?
95.
No, boy. All right.
And then I will share just one more thing, Bob, before you move on with the rest of the agenda. It was reminded when we talked about, when Jack gave his report on the highway department, last year when we reconfigured these committees, the term that we threw out, and Chris Norberg took the lead on this, as you all know, the term that we threw out a lot was that a liaison. So we envisioned that the committees would appoint committee members to be a liaison to various departments if necessary. One of the things that I talked about specifically with Dave Anderson is that Ron Gascoigne, who is on county services, which is where highway reports to, that Ron would be a logical candidate for some background and experience that he has. I'm not saying it has to be Ron, but I'm just saying to each of you, committee chairs, if you feel there's a need to appoint a liaison to various departments because there's a lot of information that floats back from these various departments, feel free to do that at your next month meeting. Or in the meantime, communicate with your members and find out if that's something they're interested in doing. I just used Ron as an example because Ron then could go to the bid openings down at the highway department. He's from Amboy, so he's locally there. Plus he has some work experience that would be helpful in the bid opening process. So I throw that on the table for your consideration. It's entirely up to you. Just think about that.
That's a good point. We've got 20 working board members, and it's nice to challenge them, and you know, we can get a lot done when we get 20 of us working for the same common goal.
And it's kind of nice for departments to have a liaison, a go-to person on a committee that they report to. So that always works well too. And for some departments, they're going to be much more, they're going to need much more things moving through this board than others, and highway is a good example of that.
All right. So let's move on. This is the part where we set the agenda for our full board meeting. We got, I'm just going to read them off as we go, and we'll go from there. Call to order, pledge allegiance, roll call. Board chair announcements, the approval of minutes, of course. Do we need Joseph Meyer if there's none? We don't need that on there. Zoning, we got the petitions. We'll have them on there. What's that?
There is one. And Alice, can you address that one? Because this was the one I referred to earlier in the meeting. We were in a state of transition at County Services, and a final decision hadn't been made, so we need to move that forward. Alice?
Yes, we had a zoning hearing last Thursday in which the zoning board is recommending approval of a petition to revoke the special use for a hotel conference center that was approved along US Route 52 near Amboy. You may be familiar with the property because it has the wind turbine blades on it. So that resolution will be coming to you guys this month for approval.
So that's something we need to add to your agenda.
Okay, and I'm sorry, is that coming from the Zoning Board of Appeals, Alice? Thank you.
So we don't need these other ones. If there's none, we don't need them on the agenda.
We typically leave them on as a placeholder month to month because then it helps us not forget them the next month. But we just, as we've done here, we just note in parentheses, there are none.
All right. And Nancy, you got that resolution? You're good with that?
Yes.
All right. Administrative monthly update, board member comments, public comments, county organizations, presentations, reports of committees, unfinished, new business. Let's go through the new business. We're going to test the onboard system.
You know, Bob, I may remove that one seriously until I get some things worked out with onboard. This week was about getting onboard some feedback. I don't know that I want to go down that road with the full board just yet.
Okay. We'll get rid of that.
So remove the test, Wendy, from County Board? Thank you.
Please remove the test.
So transfer the property and village, transfer the Compton property. Natural gas contract, ARPA staff compensation, joint tourism grant, supervisory safety, we'll take that out of there.
Yep, that's out.
Polycom Studio with Zoom feature, do we need that on there?
Yes.
Okay. Fund balance policy.
Yes.
Correction of the battery storage moratorium, of course, resolution, get rid of the resolution of opposition, House Bill 4412, number 10.
Remove number 10?
Yep.
Okay. And then one more thing that's not on there that was in finance was, do we need the revised lots MOU?
Yep, sorry, Nancy, that didn't, I obviously didn't get that to you. Thanks for catching it.
Yep.
That is good. And that's, did we get that redone or not?
At finance, yep, finance
Okay.
voted to approve that change and move it forward.
All right. Anything else that happened today that we need to have on there? This is where we always drop the ball. In finance, anything happened that,
I don't think so.
okay.
Yeah, I think
The
we're
only
good.
thing, Nancy, is I think that fund policy is an ordinance, so we got to have it hold over.
The one coming from Paul's office,
Yes.
correct?
Yep.
Thank you.
We good there?
Yep.
Okay, now we're going down to appointments, and the first one is the mass transit. We've heard from Mr. Nicholson. I'm recommending Amir Ramadani or whatever. Do you want to discuss it here, or do you want, anybody have any issues?
Bob, excuse me, can I make a comment?
Yeah.
While you gentlemen were talking, I researched this ordinance, and I have a huge respect for Charlie Boonstra. But I believe this is the part that refers to the appointment of mass transit district.
Speak into your thing so we can all hear you.
Yeah, sorry about that. It says, except for Metro East Mass Transit, which I assume is in Chicago area, no trustee of any district may be an elected official of the municipality or municipalities or county or counties creating the district. That's all it really says about it. And I'm neither. I'm none of those. So that's for your information, but I would think that you would want his input. But that eliminates everybody but a county official, because the county is the one setting up the mass transit district. So, as I say, I would request that you table it until you get advice from Charlie. And I don't know if he's made a distinct opinion.
So officially, this topic got tabled at the full board, so this committee can't like retable it. If it happens or comes off the table, it'll be at the full board. So
There's nothing for us to do here.
Yeah. I just want a little feedback, or maybe I'll get that individually. All right. All right. So it's tabled on the full board. Appointment of Terry Zink, executive session. I would leave that on there. I don't have anything at this time. Approval of the reports, monthly revenue, mileage and per diem, county board. So I need a motion to approve the proposed county board agenda.
So moved.
Mr. Sheeline moves and Mr. Kitson seconds it. Any discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Kitson moved, Mr. Copine second. Any discussion? None. All those